The United States and Israel are waging a war to eliminate an existential threat from Iran's Islamic regime and to hopefully cause it to topple. But why did the since-slain Grand Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, misread President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? Despite the initial successes of this offensive, is regime change a realistic option? And what does this conflict mean for a region that prior to October 7th thought that Iran and its allies were invulnerable? Next, on Think Twice, we take a deep dive into the conflict with a top Israeli military intelligence analyst, Yossi Kubelwasser. Hello, and welcome to Think Twice. Today we have an important conversation for you with veteran Israeli intelligence analyst General Yossi Kubelwasser. But before we start today's program, I want to remind you, as always, that whether you're listening to us on any of the podcast platforms or watching us live on Facebook or X or on the JNS YouTube channel, please like and or subscribe to Think Twice, click on the bell for notifications, and give us good reviews. Also, in addition to Think Twice, there is a Jonathan Tobin Daily podcast where I share more news and analysis with you about the most significant issues we're facing today. You can find the Daily Show under Jonathan Tobin Daily on the JNS channel, wherever you get your podcasts. And now, to today's program. The joint U.S.-Israeli effort against the Islamic regime in Iran is still in its early stages, but the war the Tehran theocracy has been waging against the West began 47 years ago. Over the past 5 decades, Iran has killed hundreds of Americans and strives ceaselessly to undermine Washington and its allies and aid its enemies like Russia and China. Rooted in religious fanaticism, their sponsorship of terrorism and nuclear ambitions are non-negotiable. Yet many in the United States either don't know this or don't understand the nature of the regime and believe that Americans can live with these threats or that the Iranian government is a reflection of their own illusions about how the world works, rather than what it actually is. That's why the stakes in the conflict that began on February 28th with Israeli and U.S. strikes on the Islamist regime are so high, and why so many Americans oppose President Trump's wise decision to act don't understand any of this. To discuss this topic, we're fortunate to have with us today one of Israel's most serious analysts of the strategic situation in the Middle East and the conflict with Iran and its proxy groups. Brigadier General Yossi Kubelwasser is the director of Jerusalem's Institute for Strategy and Security. He is also the head of the Institute for the Research of the Methodology of Intelligence at the Israeli Intelligence Community Commemoration and Heritage Center. He was formerly the Director General of the Ministry of International Affairs and Strategy. In his long career at the IDF, he served in various roles in military intelligence. He has authored a wide variety of publications on Middle East, terrorism, and intelligence, and he is an opinion contributor to various Israeli and international papers and other media outlets, including JNS. Yossi Kubelwasser, welcome back to Think Twice.
My pleasure, John.
Well, General, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. I want to start by asking you, why did Iran's leaders miscalculate so badly with respect to President Trump? Did they really believe they could string out negotiations with him the way they did with Barack Obama and Joe Biden? Or do you think they really knew something like this was coming and just let it happen?
Well, as always, I think there's more than one reason why they made this mistake. The main reason is that they couldn't do anything else, because accepting the conditions put forward by the president would have portrayed them as weak, and they cannot afford being seen weak at home. And that's the first and most important reason. Second is that they are really committed to having this nuclear weapon, and they want to see the program maintained and secured. And the timetables are less important for them, but having the capability to produce nuclear weapons is extremely important for them, because in the end of the day, this is a regime with a mission And its mission is to spread Islam all over the Middle East and beyond. And they really believe that in order to be able to do that, they need a nuclear weapon that would secure them against any threat from other superpowers. And that's why they can't afford giving it up. And thirdly, they were under the belief that there are enough people around Trump who are going to tell him, don't go that far, it's risky, it's not worth the effort. 7 years is good, and let's not take the risk of suffering what the Iranians promise us, closure of the Hormuz Straits.
That had worked in the past, hadn't it?
It has worked very well in the past, and they heard rumors that this is working this time as well. All these people who wanted to create the impression that Trump is succumbing to these ideas and is going to tell Witkoff, and that Witkoff himself is supporting of this attitude. All these people caused the Iranians very heavy damage because they made them believe that there is a possibility that they are going to get away with this program and will be able to produce nuclear weapons in the future. And this was a big mistake, and they are paying the price right now. But and they are, by the way, I'm not sure that, as I said, they had any other option. Even if they didn't have these rumors about flexibility of Trump, I'm not sure that they would have taken any other option.
Yeah, well, they've boxed themselves in because this is an ideological thing. This is theological. It's not just a policy option for them, isn't it?
No, look, according to their theological thinking, there are situations in which you are allowed to drink the poisonous chalice and make all kinds of concessions, as long as these concessions are not existential, not as long as they are not giving up the cause for which you live. They draw their thinking from Islamic precedents, like the Hudaybiyah agreement, in which when Prophet Muhammad was faced with a much stronger force, he decided not to go to war, but to go back and retreat, and even gave a promise to the people of Mecca that for 10 years he's not going to enter Mecca, while knowing that he was going to take advantage of this situation in order to become stronger. And then after 2 years, after he fought against all kinds of forces in the Arab Peninsula, mainly the Jews, he was strong enough in order to re-enter Mecca without a war, without a fight. This is the logic. This is the logic according to which they made the 2003 agreement with the Europeans, delaying the timetable for having a nuclear weapon. According to the same logic, they made the 2003 and 13 agreement and the 2015 agreement, the JCPOA. All were under this logic. We can postpone things, but as long as we don't give up the chance to having the nuclear weapon eventually, it doesn't matter if we have it in 2031 or in 2033. And but we have to make sure that we stay in power, and we have to make sure that we are going to be able, maybe a little bit later, to have those nuclear weapons. What Trump was asking them to do was to give it up altogether, to give up the nuclear option. And this was not acceptable for them.
Right. You have long written to advocate for regime change in Iran, which is one of the stated goals of the U.S.-Israel offensive. But can it really happen if the people in charge in Tehran remain fanatic Islamists? What can the U.S. and Israel do to help the goal of regime change along, other than bombing the regime, without attempting to occupy Iran, which President Trump clearly does not want to do because he remembers, the follies of George W. Bush in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Well, it's a very difficult question, very difficult task in front of President Trump and to some extent Prime Minister Netanyahu, because all the attempts to change regimes face this problem that if you are not going to do it by force with boots on the ground, how are you going to make it happen? But the Iranian case is a very special one. And the way to do it, as put forward by the president and by Prime Minister Netanyahu, is to weaken the regime to the extent that the people of Iran, this is the major issue here, is the feelings of the people of Iran. The people of Iran are very strongly against, they have the very strong opinions against the regime. They want to change it altogether. And what needs to happen is to weaken the regime to the extent that the people of Iran will be safe once they move to the streets and remove it from power. And we are not anywhere close to that. Even though we caused a lot of damage to the regime, we are not anywhere close to this position, to this situation where the people can go out to the streets safely. And in order for them to do that, we would like to see some parts of the regime that are armed helping the people, and the chances that this is going to happen are small. Although I heard President Trump speaking about some of them calling the Americans and ready to lay down their arms and join and help. Good. I don't know if to what extent this is the really exact description of the situation. And but we need to weaken them, to weaken their ability to hit us and to hit America by decimating their capabilities to launch ballistic missiles. And once this is done, this is going to take, in my mind, at least 2 more weeks. Then there may be a chance for the people to go and do what needs to be done by themselves. There might be a need to arm them a little bit in between so that they will feel more secure when they go out to the streets. But maybe it's not going to be necessary if we see that the regime collapses.
How optimistic are you about that happening?
I'm optimistic. Not very optimistic, but optimistic to some extent. And I base my optimism on the fact that the people of Iran have shown the readiness to take risks in order to bring about a change in the situation. When the people went out in late December and early January, they knew they'd take a risk, and they did it nevertheless. And many of them paid with their lives. And this didn't change their attitude towards the regime. They still think that the regime should go. They just stay at home because everybody told them, look, you're not going to get any defense, any protection when you go out to the streets. So you'd rather not go to the streets again. But I don't think they have changed their attitude. And if they feel that this time the outcome is going to be different and the regime is going to fall and not shoot at them, then they might take the risk again. That's why I'm optimistic, but I'm not very optimistic because we have to realize that this part of the Iranian population that supports the regime is ready to shoot their fellow Iranians. And at least for the time being, they're still ready to shoot their fellow Iranians. And as long as this is the case, it's going to be hard to replace the regime. I heard President Trump today speaking about how he envisages this is going to unfold. And he portrayed it a little bit different. He said that he expects the people that would lead the revolution to be people from within the regime. So I guess he's referring to the reformists within the regime. Want to see a change in their attitude, definitely to the people. Although they are not less committed to having a nuclear weapon. They are not less committed to the idea that this is a messianic regime that has to spread Islam all over the world. I hope that the president knows that these reformists are not exactly the people you want to work with.
Well, I think one of the reported differences between Israel and the United States about the future of Iran is that the Israelis are a bit more enamored with the son of the late Shah, Reza Pahlavi, and the Trump administration doesn't seem to have much use for him. What do you think about him? And do you think there's any chance that he can actually play a productive role in a, sort of post-Islamist Iran? Or is this just wishful thinking on his part and wishful thinking on the part of Israelis who'd, love to see sort of a more rational, more moderate Iran that may not be in the cards?
Well, first of all, when you say Israelis, you have to be cautious because there's no such thing as Israelis. We have many Israelis. Everybody has an opinion.
Yeah. I guess by that I meant, the
The
government.
government, yes.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. The Iranian opposition is fragmented and it's very problematic to choose from within the opposition somebody who is going to be the next leader of Iran. They don't manage well with each other. And the fact that the 5 Kurdish factions were able to sit together is really impressive, but this was not also done without problems. And definitely when you're talking about the rest of the opposition, it's more complicated. Among the opposition, we have to first of all differ between 2 kinds of opposition. The opposition at home in Iran, which we know very little about who is the leaders and who can lead the revolution from within them. And they have a better chance to lead the opposition because they are there, they have taken the risks. They are more fit for that mission. And the opposition outside of the opposition in exile. The opposition in exile, the most prominent figure amongst them is Reza Pahlavi. He's the most prominent. But that said, he is unwanted by many of his fellow Iranians in exile. And he probably represents something like 30% of them, which is nice, but it's not a majority. But in the end of the day, somebody has to lead. And the problem with Pahlavi that he doesn't pretend to be the leader. He wants to be a facilitator of the transitional period. And so it might be a solution for a temporary time. But this is not necessarily going to be the next leader of Iran. And he's not even accepted as the transitional leader by many of the factions. So that's one of the major problems we are facing. We are dealing with Iranians. And they are very opinionated and everybody has his own agenda. And everybody believes in himself as the best fit for the job. And some of the groups are minority groups that are not trusted by the majority because they are afraid that they are actually trying to get some sort of separatism. It's not easy to deal with the Iranian opposition. And,
Clearly.
I think everybody realizes that. But in the end of the day, I hope they are going to rise to the challenge of removing the regime, because the one thing that connects them all is they don't want this regime. That's the one thing that they have in common. And they have to first get rid of this regime and then start to quarrel amongst themselves about who is going to be the next leader. And I sincerely hope that the way they were going to decide on this matter is going to be a democratic way. Let's hope that this is going to be the case. Am I optimistic about that? Not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, there's good reason for skepticism there. Switching to the U.S.-Israel alliance, are you worried about the effort by Trump's right-wing and left-wing critics to blame U.S. involvement in the war on Israel and the impact this will have on the alliance, especially if it doesn't go smoothly in the next few weeks?
Yes, I'm worried. There's no way to escape being worried about the fact that everybody's trying to blame Israel. I saw today the New York Times description of how we ended up in this war and this attempt to put it on Israel. I was happy to see that President Trump said it was not because of Israel. I had to force Israel to go to war. It's nice to see that he's saying that, but there are enough people who are guided by the need to blame Israel for everything. And you have Tucker Carlson on the one hand and many other lunatics on that side of the aisle. And of course, the old anti-Semites and anti-Zionists on the extreme left, and sometimes not very extreme. And we face a very strange situation where we are attacked from both sides of the aisle. It's problematic. We have to prioritize. Our first priority is to make sure that the Iran terrorist regime is out of business. That's the first priority. might cause us some paying some prices in the United States. We should take care of that, I hope, later on. Right now, we are focused on getting rid of the Iranian regime, and that's the most important thing. And we hope to be successful. And if we are successful, many of the critics will not be able to wipe off what they said before. We do not want the United States to be involved in problematic affairs. So we want the United States to win. We want the United States to enjoy better security. We contribute a lot to the security of the United States. We took upon ourselves a lot of the activities in this joint operation with the Americans. We contribute to the intelligence. We contribute to the operations. We prove again, I think, that we are an asset for the United States when it comes to its security and safety. And I hope this war is going to be remembered like this in the American history.
Moving back to Iran, we know that many Iranians want change. But after 47 years of indoctrination by an Islamist government, how much support does the regime still have? And just what do you think a post-Islamic republic could actually look like, given the fact that while there are many people who took to the streets, risked their lives, and were killed to stop it, there probably are still, a great many who would fight to keep it.
Yes, definitely. There are many supporters of the regime in Iran. But they are outnumbered by those who oppose the regime. And this is really amazing because you correctly point to the indoctrination that every Iranian goes through as a young pupil at school and so on. And it tells you how committed to freedom the people of Iran are, despite of this indoctrination. They are able to see things clearly and understand that this is bad and what they want to see happening is good. And that's really impressive. And you see the youngsters in the universities, they're totally against it. You see what happened with Mahsa Amini and the support she got after her death, unfortunately. This tells you a fortune about how ineffective the indoctrination is. And but yes, some support it. Of course, there are some who support it, and I would guess something between 15% and 20% of the population supports the regime. It's, which would put the numbers of those who are against it at 80 to 85%. The unfortunate thing about it is that those who support the regime are those who, first of all, have the weapons, and secondly,
they're in the IRGC and perhaps some in the army as well.
All these security apparatuses, and they have a vested interest in keeping it in place because the IRGC controls not only the guns, but it controls the economy as well. So those who support the regime get rewarded for that. And this is, of course, makes the commitment to support the regime even stronger. And I'm worried about that.
Now, as much damage as the regime has sustained, it still has some cards to play. You've written about its international terror network and the possibility that it has sleeper agents in the West. Do you think it can really deploy them to create mayhem in the United States or Europe? And I guess if they aren't going to activate them now, when would they do so?
No, definitely. It's, this is the fight over the existence of the regime, survival of the regime. It's now or never. And that's why I think that everybody should be on high alert. It takes time to wake up those dormant cells, but they have to plan. They have to decide what to do. Some of them have some plans in advance. They are going to activate them. They are going to try to activate them, I'm sure. And I don't think that what happened in Austin looks to me as nothing, not as an Iranian operation, but just operation, the support of Iran. But this can happen too. You see all these lunatics in the universities that came against Israel during the war in Gaza. They are supported and they support Iran. They can take to the streets again. So it's not only necessarily terror attacks, but also instability and riots and things like that can happen. And but also terror attacks. I would also point at something else. There's going to be a lot, and there is already the beginning of activity of cognitive warfare in the internet and other facilities that they use in order to spread question marks about the reasoning behind going to war and blaming Trump and Netanyahu for acting illegally and so on and so forth. There are a lot of claims that they can come up with in order to weaken the commitment of the Americans and the Israelis to have this job done properly. And all of these efforts are done for the same purpose, and it also goes for the attacks against the Gulf states. All of this has one purpose: to convince the United States, especially the United States, they have less expectations from Israel, but to convince the United States to stop. And whereas in Israel there's a consensus about the importance of this war and this effort, in the United States, as you mentioned before, there's no consensus. There's maybe wide support, but or some support, some considerable support, but not consensus. Definitely not. They're going to take advantage of that in order to convince Trump to stop.
Well, I think prior to 2023 and 2024, I think many people thought of Hezbollah in Lebanon as sort of a failsafe for Iran because of its arsenal of missiles to rain down terror on the north of Israel. But I think the failure of Hezbollah to do much, it's done some things in the last few days to aid its masters in Tehran, is as telling as the reaction of the Lebanese government. Hezbollah has lost a lot of power since its defeat by Israel in 2024. Is it possible for it to lose even more as a result of this current conflict?
Well, they are trying to make as many mistakes as they can. So after deciding, they began sitting on the fence, which was a wise move by them in my mind. But then again, after they waited for 2 days, they decided to intervene. And once they did so, they lost the Lebanese people, because the Lebanese say, you pretend to be our shield, our protector. Well, what you actually do is put us in harm's way. And what is the logic behind that? You do that in order to support your Iranian patrons, ignoring the security needs of Lebanon. That's terrible. So even the government, and to some extent even Amal, was criticizing Hezbollah. This was really strange to see. And of course, they gave us an excuse to hit them hard, which we did. And even deployed some forces in the along the southern border of Lebanon. And because this made them very furious, they launched a missile towards Tel Aviv tonight, and towards Haifa. And this gives us another reason to take even harsher measures against them. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, okay, you wanted to say that you show solidarity with Iran. You did it. You paid the price. Okay, you can go to bed. No, they insist on escalating. And God knows what's going to be the retaliation of Israel. We are going to take harsher measures because we are not going to allow them. We are not going to live with them launching missiles towards Tel Aviv and Haifa. This is not going to happen.
Yeah. Is this like the Iranians where, as you said in my opening question, they really don't have that much choice? They're just ideologically and theologically committed to defense of the regime in Tehran.
Well, Hezbollah didn't have a choice. It was difficult to choose this choice, but he did have a choice. He could have said, like the Houthis. For the Houthis, for example, until now say, we are watching what's happening. We think the Iranians are doing well, and we don't think that for the time being we have to intervene. We might decide to intervene tomorrow, but so far no need. The Hezbollah could have adopted a similar attitude, but they decided to move. Maybe because their leader is inexperienced and doesn't know how to handle such a situation. It doesn't matter. The fact is that they decided to move. paying the price. They could have avoided it. They could have, but they decided to. It's not exactly like the Iranians. It's not the existential. It could have been not an existential issue for Hezbollah. It might end up being an existential issue for Hezbollah, because if we hit them really hard, we might reach a point where the Lebanese government is going to feel capable enough to handle this matter by themselves. And that's that's the wet dream of everybody, that they will be forceful enough in order to take care of Hezbollah by themselves. And for that, we have to weaken Hezbollah even much more. And we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the Houthis, who are another Iranian proxy. But they are seemingly taking a more reasonable and wise stance of staying out of this. But looking down the line, can they survive the mullah's fall in Tehran? And do you think the fact that they've been so quiet in the last few days shows signs that they are not quite as irrational as at times they've seen?
Well, they are irrational. They don't have our rationale in that respect. They're rational, but not our rationale. But they understand that it's very risky to intervene now. Because of that, they weigh their different arguments and trying to decide which way to go. We are only on day 4 of the war. They still have enough time to decide later that they are going to go one way or another. So far, they sit on the fence, just like Hezbollah did in the beginning. Hezbollah was, the problem of Hezbollah, that it has many identities. And one of them is the Shiite identity. It has to take care of the Shiites in Lebanon. And it has to take care of Lebanon, because it has a Lebanese identity. And it has a jihadic identity that pushes it to take action. And it has an Iranian identity that was at stake now, because Iran was under threat and being attacked heavily. And they felt that something has to be done, especially after Khamenei was eliminated. And I can understand this decision. I don't justify it, and I think it was a wrong decision, but I can understand what went through their mind. The Houthis, their calculation is a little bit more simple. Their commitment to the Iranians is not of the same magnitude of that of Hezbollah. They really control their land. It's not Hezbollah that has to operate within the complicated Lebanese arena. They control the land. They have a problem with the rest of the Yemenites, but they do control the land. So nobody's going to take them out of there, and not in the foreseeable future, at least. And, so why get involved in something that is risky? And they still remember very well the price they paid. And Hezbollah should have remembered the price they paid too, but they probably forgot it. Houthis remember it. It's fresher a little bit. They decided so far to postpone the decision.
Now, I guess the logical next question is, what's next for Hamas, Iran's other ally in the region? Will its position in the parts of Gaza it still holds worsen as a result of this fighting, or is it counting on help from Turkey and Qatar and the war weariness of Israelis to ensure that there is no new fighting in Gaza, or at least none this year in advance of Israeli elections? And while both the U.S. and Israel are busy with Iran, how do they factor into this situation?
Oh, they definitely want to see Israel and the United States failing in Iran, because they understand if Iran falls, their position is going to be weakened considerably. It's not an immediate impact. They're not going to collapse just because Iran falls. But it's making the entire axis that they belong to much weaker, and it's bad news for Hamas. And it shows that when people tell them, look, there's going to be military disarmament of your organization, and they think that that's not going to happen. Look, your friends in Iran were given the same warning and they ignored it. And look what happened. So you'd rather disarm yourself and before similar things happen here. I think that they realized that just like Israel and the United States cooperated in In Iran, they may cooperate here because the president is very clear. They have to disarm. He repeatedly says so. And I think that they realize that. For the time being, they are very happy that it's not happening in Gaza, but it's happening somewhere else, and everybody's attention is moving to this other arena. But they know that if the United States and Israel are successful, it has difficult repercussions for them. And I think that Israel, I don't know when the elections in Israel are going to take place, but it doesn't matter if it's going to be 3 months later or 3 months earlier. Eventually, if Hamas doesn't disarm by its own will, we should go for a military operation to disarm it.
Are you confident that's going to happen one way or another, that Israel isn't going to, that the government, and whatever government follows this one, assuming that, there might be a different one, that they won't live with the current status quo?
But as long as this government is in power, they are going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, there are optimists, both in the United States and Israel, who hope that Iran's transformation, assuming that's possible, will revive interest in expanding the Abraham Accords. But I guess my question is, won't the Saudis be even less likely to join them if their number one foe is not merely weakened, but, eliminated? Haven't they already signaled their disinterest in full normalization with Israel, despite Trump's desire for it?
First of all, it's, as we say in the Middle East, it's complicated.
Yes, it is.
Because on the one hand, yes, Iran may cease to be a threat to Saudi Arabia. But on the other, Iran may join hands with Israel. The pragmatic camp in the Middle East can gain strength, and the Saudis will be facing this totally different regional architecture that they would have to join in. They can't stay out of it. And this may be widening of the Abraham Accords, not necessarily first through Saudi Arabia, but first through Iran. This is a possibility. You saw the Israeli flags in the Iranian demonstrations. They are more than willing to join hands with Israel. They appreciate Israel not less than they appreciate the United States' effort to have them, to give them their freedom. Yes, the Saudis understand that they need something on the Palestinian track, but look, Israel has already done whatever the Saudis asked. We were ready to see the 19th article in the 20 points plan of President Trump that says that if there are reforms in the Palestinian Authority, there might be a path towards Palestinian self-determination that may take the shape of a state. What else do they want? This is what we promised. This is what they asked for. And so the Palestinian aspect of building normal relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia was already dealt with. And it's amazing that the Saudis still got cold feet and left the building. I would expect that if we have the Iranian issue settled the way we all want it to see settled, the United States should go to the Saudis and say, look, you have Article 19. Go make peace with Israel. Go establish normal relations with Israel. And you got to give us something also, not only ask for things from us. Beyond $1 trillion.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the optimistic scenario.
Yep.
Let's examine a more pessimistic scenario. What is Israel's fallback position if the regime doesn't fall? Which it might not.
We can live without normal relations with Saudi Arabia. We lived until now for 76 years without normal relations with Saudi Arabia. We can live more years without it. Israel is doing extremely well, and the economy is flourishing, and the shekel is so strong without having normal relations with Saudi Arabia. We don't need Saudi Arabia. We would like to have good relations with Saudi Arabia because it's good for everybody. But we can live without it. And anyhow, we are going to continue to have some sort of integration with Saudi Arabia. It's not normal relations, but we can have integration with Saudi Arabia. And this was a Saudi idea. We can cooperate on economic issues. We can cooperate on technological issues. We can cooperate on climate issues. We can cooperate on even security issues as well, without having full normal relations. So we can do all of the above, and it's up to the Saudis. If they want to have it, they can have it. We would like to have it. We would like to have normal relations, but we can be satisfied with integration.
Yeah. With respect to Iran, what is Israel's fallback position if the regime there doesn't fall? Is damaging it, as it has been damaged, enough? If this goes, if the war, the subsequent weeks goes badly, which it fortunately hasn't so far, are there repercussions that you think the government hasn't considered about how that will play out?
Well, you see, if the regime decides to capitulate on the nuclear issue, really give up the nuclear issue in a verifiable and monitored way, and gives up on the ballistic missiles, and gives up on the proxies, and gives a guarantee that he's not going to shoot his people, and stays in power, it's a bad option, but in my mind, can be a fallback option. It's going to be very difficult for the regime to accept it. Let's put it this way. I don't think that this is going to happen. But if we end up with this, it's not the result we want. We want to see a change of the regime. But we can be satisfied with that.
Now, I think it's a given that Israel isn't going back to where it was with respect to many issues on October 6, 2023. But it's entirely true, as we've touched on briefly before, that its popularity in America has fallen since then. What do you think are its options in terms of dealing with improving its image in the face of, really hostile international media, influenced by, radical myths that have helped foster anti-Semitism on the right as well as the left? Do you have any ideas about how Israel is coping with what has really been not merely just a tsunami of anti-Semitism, but a tsunami of really hatred for Israel in the West?
Well, first of all, we have to realize that it's going to be extremely difficult to change the minds of those who hate us. Those who hate us, what we can do is to prove how terrible they are, and how anti-Semitic they are, and how unacceptable, and how anti-the United States they are, how anti-American they are. Because those who are anti-Israeli are usually anti-American as well. So we have to show that in order for people not to join them, and maybe convince some of them that they should be that anti-American and anti-Jewish. That said, our main effort in my mind should be regarding those people who are bombarded with this message and are not supportive of this message yet. And we have to focus, in my mind, on that part of the Democratic Party that is still pro-Israeli. It's not that small part of the Democratic Party. Sometimes we look at the Democratic Party as a lost case. I don't think this is the case. We should make an effort with those Democrats that are still supportive. And there are some of them that are really very friendly and very supportive. There are some of them who are undecided. And we have to be relevant to those undecided. And we have to put much more effort and money on this issue. Because for many years we thought that, this is a minor issue. We are so, as the mother of Jerry Seinfeld used to say to him, how can anybody not love you? So we thought to ourselves, how can anybody not love us? We are really a force for the good. And we were so convinced about it that we ignored the need to convince people that we are really good people. And we have to put more effort on that. What we have done so far is very little, and sometimes wrong. Sometimes we threw our money on the wrong efforts. We have to focus on this area. And of course, keep the strong ties with those who support us. That's obvious. Those who support Israel should be feeling how much we love them and how much we appreciate what they're doing. And first amongst these is President Trump. So he has to know that we really appreciate whatever he's doing. He's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. Starting with moving the embassy to Jerusalem, and lastly, taking the war into Tehran. To change everything. This is unbelievable. And the reason he does that is, first of all, recognizing our rights, and secondly, recognizing that this is for the best interest of America. That's his main concern, is how to promote the interest of America. And this, supporting Israel, is good for America. That's what we have to make everybody understand.
I think that's a good point to end. General Kupferwasser, thanks so much for joining us today. How can people find out more about your organization and follow your work?
Well, I'm the head of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, and if you do JISS, or Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, you will find our website, which is jiss.org.il, and you can enjoy what we wrote. We have this habit of being right about many things, so I don't want to brag too much about it, but from time to time you're right. And if you really want to follow what I wrote, because I'm with JISS only for 1 year now, but some of the things I wrote, you can look back in the internet. I recommend the paper about disarming Gaza, that I wrote, disarmament of Gaza. I wrote in June 2023, in which I said we need to do that, otherwise we should end up with something, even though we don't have legitimacy, we have to do that, because otherwise we will end up with paying a very, very high price, much more than the price of taking the initiative in order to disarm Gaza.
Yeah, well, that was definitely prescient. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We also want to thank our audience. Please remember to tune in every day for Jonathan Tobin Daily Edition, which you can hear wherever you get your podcasts. And whether you're listening to us on one of them or watching us live on Facebook or X or on the JNS YouTube channel, please like and or subscribe to JNS, click on the bell for notifications, and give us good reviews. Please write to us at thinktwice@jns.org and let us know where you listen or watch the show and what you think about it. And remember, keep reading and thinking for yourself. And we'll see you again next week.